Yeah, you see this land? Yeah, this land's been in my family for years. I've been farming this land all my life. My pappy farmed this land, his daddy before him. Worked the soil all our lives. Been some hard times, but she's always been here for us. A lot of great memories in this place too. And you know, one of these days, Jimmy, this is all going to be yours. It's not just a farm, mind you. It's just not just dirt on the ground. It's a legacy. It's dreams that have come together from generations of our family working hard all their lives. Something that you can be proud of. Something good about working with your own hands, having your own land. That's the kind of thing that I'm passing along to you, son. The kind of thing that makes man proud. Proud of his work and proud of his life. And it brings me a lot of joy to know that someday you're going to work this farm just like I did and my daddy did and his daddy before him. Let me tell you something, son. There are a lot of places you can spend your life, a lot of places you can go, a lot of things you can do. But being right here on the farm, I just can't think of any place I'd rather be. All our lives have been here, and this is more than just home. It's a place of memories, a place where you get to live. You get to live. It's good to know that all this work and effort, all this time that we've invested in this land won't go to waste. It'll live on. It'll live on through you just like it did through me. This is our hope for the future. One of these days, I'm going to have a chance to come back here and see how you took this dream and made it even greater than I did. Okay, Jimmy. We better run in and grab something to eat. Let's go to supper, boy.
This will be a great place for a Starbucks.
You're going nowhere down this dead-end street. Dead-end street, dead-end street. Dead-end street, dead-end street. Yeah, this dead-end street. There's a dead-end street.
As Solomon continues leading us down dead-end roads so that we can learn from his experience, we turn to the question of the pursuit of wealth and power. In our skit, we had a picture of a farmer and his son, and the farmer's desire to leave to his son the accumulation of all his effort. And one of the things that Solomon talks about in the book of Ecclesiastes is how people work so hard to accumulate wealth only to have it sort of get squandered by those who come behind them. They never know whether or not the next person who receives the benefits of their wealth will actually use it wisely or just take for granted all the labor that they've invested in acquiring the wealth that they have. At any rate, in this section we get to explore the pursuit of wealth and what that might mean. In Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 10 through 12, Solomon says this: "Whoever loves money never has enough money. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with his income. This too is meaningless. As goods increase, so do those who consume them. And what benefit are they to the owner except to feast his eyes on them?" Continuing in verse 12, "The sleep of the laborer is sweet, whether he eats little or much, but the abundance of the rich man permits him no sleep." As we begin to look at the question of wealth as something to be a life pursuit, we realize that Solomon makes several statements to help us focus in on the improbability or the impossibility of wealth being our life's pursuit. The first thing he says to us is that if you really love money, if that's your goal, if that's the heart of who you are, then you will never ultimately be satisfied. Whoever loves it can never get enough. He's not talking about the fact that we all need a certain amount of money to pay our bills or get by, but he's talking about money as the center of our existence, the thing that we pursue, and the having of it, the accumulation of wealth, being for us a goal that will somehow presumably provide us with satisfaction, or happiness in life. In fact, he goes on to say that money itself can become a fundamental problem for us. In other words, we can be consumed by our consumption. We can be possessed by our possessions. Now, in which sense he means this is curious to ask. Whether he means that as we have money and we spend it, we acquire bills, or we acquire creditors, and then they become sources of friction or anxiety in our lives, or whether he means that once we become wealthy, or if we're in the pursuit of wealth, that we develop friendships, allegiances that actually draw away from us and distract us from what's important. The bottom line is that the pursuit of money itself, and even the accumulation of wealth, can lead to habits and responses and relationships that are actually counterproductive and destructive to our lives. It can even be counterproductive, he says, to our health. He describes the pursuit for wealth as our desire in life as something that causes us to not be able to sleep at night. And he creates a nice contrast. He says in verse 12, the sleep of the laborer is sweet, whether he eats little or much. His point is the physical exertion of labor causes him to be able to rest well at night. Whether he has a lot or he has a little, the fact that he's actually using his life in that way causes him to need to be tired, to need to be rested. He recognizes that people who pursue wealth are also working, but they're doing a sort of work that actually causes them to not be able to sleep well at night. What does that mean exactly? Is it because that the pursuit of wealth leads us to worry that either we don't have enough, or we're not getting it fast enough, or that somebody might actually come and take it away from us? Or is it because we are driven by our ambition to have more? He's already said that if your goal in life is to be wealthy, then you'll never quite have enough. You'll never quite satisfy that ambition to have just a bit more, to get something a little bit better than what you already have. Money as a life pursuit will certainly leave us longing, Solomon says. As we pick up his discussion of wealth, in Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 13 and 14, he describes a problem that he's seen as he looks at the world, as he observes the realities of what money does in the lives of people, or what wealth does in the life of people. He says in verse 13, I have seen a grievous evil under the sun, wealth hoarded to the harm of its owner, or wealth lost through some misfortune, so that when he has a son, there is nothing left for him. In other words, he says, here's the problem that comes along with pursuing money or pursuing wealth as your life's ambition. And that is that the actual process of hoarding wealth in order to accumulate more wealth actually has a destructive influence on the person who does these sort of things. It's sort of a two-edged sword. On the one hand, our resources provide us with a tool that can bring real benefit into other people's lives. But when we're worried about losing our resources or not having enough resources, and we hoard them to ourselves, we end up accumulating more and more resources, and they simply get accumulated so that we sort of have the opportunity to know that they're there, recognize they're there, but they don't actually accomplish anything of significance either for ourselves or for others. We simply accumulate more of them. And the desire to be wealthy and to accumulate greater wealth can cause us not to utilize what we have when it could be a benefit for people and ourselves in the present. And this, Solomon says, can result in the owner's hurt, which can be misery that's driven by greed or several other ways of thinking about it. But the tragic reality is that sometimes money, which is a tool to accomplish something, can lose its value to actually bring about beneficial results in the lives of people, because those who want it hold on to it so tightly and value it so much personally that they never actually use it to accomplish something of real benefit. And money can be lost through tragedy or misfortune. And for that reason, Solomon says this is a sad situation that he's observed in the world, is that someone can work, maybe a very honest person, and if their entire goal is to accumulate money to pass along to, say, a descendant, a son or a daughter, some misfortune may strike. And that's not necessarily something bad or evil, just the realities of life. And before you know it, something that you've spent years and years of your life trying to acquire disappears. And from a Jewish perspective then, you end up with this tragic misfortune of having nothing to pass along to your son, so that your son, your heirs, get no benefit from all your labor. His point is simply this: holding on to wealth in this world is problematic. Pursuing wealth in this world is problematic. Because even if somehow you manage to attain it, there isn't any way that you can be sure that you can hold on to it. And even if you manage to hold on to it, what will it really bring you? Solomon isn't saying that money and possessions per se are evil. He's saying that money as the pursuit of your life's goal is wrong and misleading, and will ultimately leave you dissatisfied and empty and longing, and even lead you into places of selfishness and greed that are counterproductive for you and for others. As he continues talking about money, in Ecclesiastes 5 verses 15 through 17, he says, "Naked a man comes from his mother's womb, and as he comes, so he departs. He takes nothing from his labor that he can carry in his hand. This too is a grievous evil. As a man comes, so he departs. And what does he gain since he toils for the wind? All his days he eats in darkness with great frustration, affliction, and anger." Wow. This is sort of a final reality check that Solomon gives us on the question of pursuing wealth as your life's ambition, so to speak. He says, first of all, understand this: you can't take it with you. Naked you came into this world, naked you come out. Clearly he's trying to communicate the idea that wealth has no enduring significance. And because he will keep reminding us over and over again in the book of Ecclesiastes that death is the final card as far as this world is concerned, and you never know when it's going to come, why would you spend your entire life trading away the present, trading away possibilities for the future acquisition of greater wealth? Why would you spend your entire life pursuing wealth? How could it be a satisfying life goal? He simply says, it simply won't satisfy you. It won't bring you joy or happiness or contentment. It won't provide a basis for how you live your life. And the life pursuit of it will tragically rob you, potentially, of whatever happiness you might have been experiencing now. He describes this in an interesting way. He says, all of his days he eats in darkness with frustration, affliction, and anger. Now, from an Old Testament perspective, to enjoy the fruits of your labors, to be able to eat and find pleasure in the things that you've accomplished, is a common concept. But here's a picture of somebody who is so ambitious, so driven, so desirous to have more, to acquire more, to be more, to have more wealth, that he's not content with what he does have and what he can enjoy. So the joys of the present are robbed, so to speak, by a desire to have more for the future. This too, Solomon wants to tell us, is a dead-end pursuit. We're not going to find satisfaction and joy in this life in the pursuit of wealth. This is meaningless, chasing after the wind.